Welcome to Filmmaker to Filmmaker. I am blessed and honored to be with someone. It's one thing to interview people that you've heard about and that you know of, but to actually have to interview someone that you actually have had an experience with and that you can kind of qualify the type of work and character and all that. That's very exciting for me, and I'm here with Mr. 𝐒𝐤𝐿.
Hey man, welcome. I feel like I'm welcoming you.
Yeah.
Because I'm used to being welcomed, but I'm in your arena today, so I'm happy to be here.
I think we're all, we're both dealing with the reversal of roles, so to speak. You're doing a better job than me. How about that?
We're off to a good start.
Thank you for being on my podcast, first of all.
My pleasure, man.
You are a busy man, and I'm not just saying that. I know you're super busy, so for you to make time for this I'm greatly humble, and thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Like I tell you guys all the time, I really believe in community, and the best way to make community work is to actually be active in community. So this is my pleasure to be here to represent, man.
Where does that come from, community? That's something that I hear you talk about a lot, and you don't really hear that with a lot of creatives. Everyone, especially now, is kind of out for self.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I appreciate about everything associated with you, it's just you're very consistent with that. So where does that actually come from?
I think it started early with me. My dad's a pastor, so being involved in the church and being the firstborn of my dad and having that moniker like, hey, you're an Edwards, you gotta represent the family, and then it being expanded in a church role. And then ultimately it kind of expanded more so to when I grew up. I never wanted to see people by themselves. You know, I'm the type of person, if I see you by yourself at a table, I'm gonna go talk to you.
Yeah.
And then once I expanded to a creative, it was something that I started by myself. And I said, you know what, I never want to be in a position where someone who's a creative has to do something by themselves.
Wow.
If it's something where I can get 2 or 3 people together of like-minded interest to get that going, that became something important to me. So.
Wow. So it seems like the mission was already established before you actually knew what direction in the creative space that you wanted to
You know,
go
you
to.
kind of get forced, you know, being the faith that I am.
Yeah.
And it's a very, I would say, traditional faith. And it causes that to take, you know, kind of shape itself, but then to kind of take it and make it a hybrid as an adult is just, you know, what I've come to do.
I have to ask this because I grew up in the church too. So were you part of the media team or ministry?
So being a pastor's kid, you're part of everything. So you
This
praise and worship, you doing audio, you doing everything.
Yeah.
So I kind of like was forced to be involved in a lot, whether I wanted to or not.
Okay. So with the media side of the church, how big was it? How grand was it? Or
I think it was more so I was a patchy person then. It was like wherever there was a void, it was something that I was kind of pushed into.
Okay.
So it wasn't more so something that I like enjoyed initially. It was something like, okay, this is the task that I'm taking and I'm going to take advantage of it.
Awesome. So then growing up, you already mentioned that you're a PK and then you're the oldest.
Yes.
So give me a brief not synopsis, but kind of like a description of what it was like growing up.
Initially, my father was in the military before he became a pastor. So I was born in Okinawa, Japan. And then when we came to the state,
Oh no, I want to go to Japan. That's why I'm like, okay, cool, sorry.
Yeah, so my dad was in the Air Force.
Okay.
So I was born in Okinawa, came to the States like when I was like 5, 6 years old. And then once we came to the States, that's when my dad had the call to go into ministry. So growing up with my father, going to college, because you know my parents had me at a young age. My dad was 19, my mom was 18.
Okay.
So to grow up with my parents and to see my dad go through his educational journey to being an established pastor and things of that nature, it was a structure by which, it was a lot of structure because of the military background, but then when you infuse faith into it, it becomes the calling of your structure. So that's kind of like what my life was in synopsis.
So what were some of the things creatively that you were into outside of the church? What were some of the things that kind of gauged your creativity?
That's a good question, because initially my escape to everything before I got into the creative vein was sports.
Okay.
So I played every sport, and even in high school, I got a scholarship to play basketball through college. So going from a young age, sports was my thing. It was my escape. It was my lot in life.
Okay.
And so, but when I got to college, things kind of changed, and that's where I really started to understand or sense the level of creativity that I had, and that's kind of like where it blossomed.
So what was the moment in college that was the moment that said, this is it?
Yeah, so I was asked to take a ministry in my college called Loaves and Fishes, and it was an opportunity to work with inner city kids that are around the area and to help them develop certain creative needs, whether it be homework, whether it be media, whatever it was. We extended that to the kids, and it was a lot of fun. And that's where I was like, you know what, there's something in me outside of what I thought was, sports and things of that nature. It became like, okay, I'm a creative. Like, what is that? That's where I was when it kind of blossomed for me.
And what college did you go to?
I went to Columbia Union College, which is now Washington Adventist University.
Okay.
So my degree says Columbia Union College for those who.
Love it.
Yeah,
My degree's like that too, because I went to University of Maryland University College, and now it's Global College.
Yeah, see.
I don't tell people what I major in.
Yeah.
It's not relevant.
Right.
No, I majored in communications.
Okay.
But I don't say it anymore now because there's this video going around, I don't know if you saw it, where they're like, the communications is the most worthless or pointless major in college right now. It's like, oh God, like, tell that
We're not gonna put no labels on you.
You know what? I'm proud of my communications.
That's right.
degree.
That's right.
Okay. So you go to college, and then you start to identify that this is something you're interested in.
Yeah.
What were sort of kind of the natural steps that you took from transitioning to it being an idea to you actually grabbing a camera or writing a script or whatever it was?
So I'll go back in time. So I will have to say that being a creative kind of like started even before that when I look at the whole story of things. I remember seeing the movie Flight of the Navigator.
Okay.
And I was like, and back in the day they had like the behind the scenes, like they don't do that in movies.
They don't do that anymore.
Yeah, man. So it was an opportunity for me to see like they filmed this, and I was like, wow, this is incredible. So I fell in love with the process of what movies were. So I became a movie head. So I watched a lot of movies, and I will always watch the cutscenes at the end, the extra footage that is available. And then I was like, man, this is very unique. So from that perspective, I would say love of movies and seeing all of that, like wanting to see that bonus footage. And then I would say there are two things that kind of moved me into wanting to see what film was about even before I knew it. One was, I remember my dad was really big on Black history with us, and so we watched a series called Eyes on the Prize. It was an opportunity to see a documentary, and I was like, wow, my dad's like, this is a movie. I'm like, what? This is, it's a movie series. But it was a documentary, and I loved how people were able to tell stories.
Yeah.
And fast forward, it's kind of like what my niche or my genre is outside of making like small films. Like documentaries are what like propel me to want to create, Wow. And it started with watching Eyes on the Prize, seeing these civil rights stories be unfolded, having a sense of pride, but wanting to maybe be in that creative lane to do that. And then the second thing I would say is when I saw my first Spike Lee movie. And now, remember, I'm a pastor's kid. I'm not supposed to be listening to secular music.
No, none of it.
You know,
You're going to hell for all
right,
of it.
right.
Yeah,
So
got it.
During the summer times, I would go to Philly and Chester, Pennsylvania to see my family. And one of my cousins was watching She's Gotta Have It.
That's the one.
You know, and I'm like, wow, like how is this movie so like visual and it's black and white? Like, and I was like, wow, this guy, you know, and my cousin's like, oh, this is a Spike Lee joint.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know nothing about that. So then fast forward, in high school, I start looking at his films like intentionally and seeing Mo Better Blues and Do the Right Thing and seeing that unique style that he had. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. Like, how can you do that?
Yeah.
You know, so these were the seeds that kind of like were planted beforehand that put me in a position to be the person I guess I am creatively.
You're already in vibe with the podcast. Black and white, my thing. And then also, my mom was my gateway into film. So she made me watch African-American films, but they were narratives, so like Imitations of Life, Raisin in the Sun.
Yeah, yeah.
And like, I would just sit there and be like, oh wow, this is actually really good.
Yeah, yeah.
But I was learning at the same time, so
Right.
that's pretty cool. And of course, Black and White, Rhythm Nation.
Yeah, oh, okay.
That was the behind the scene video, because I had the VHS. And I still do to this day. I'm gonna meet Janet Jackson, I'm gonna show her the VHS, and I'm gonna be like, hey, you need to sign this.
Right.
Because this was my Bible.
Right.
But I was more fascinated with watching the behind the scenes as well. And I did it repeatedly until I was like, okay, I didn't know what it was back then, but I love the process like you, so.
It's crazy that you say that, right? So again, I'm not allowed to watch secular stuff and
Yeah.
things. So my brother and I, when my parents would go to prayer meeting on Wednesdays, sometimes they wouldn't take us because we had like homework and stuff.
Yeah.
And so we figured out a way that we could put stuff on VHS as well. Rhythm Nation was like one of our jams because we wanted to get me and my brother wanted to get the choreography down packed. So it was
it's breathing. That's what it is.
So we put the VHS in, record it, and then we take it out real fast and make sure the TV wasn't warm. So
yeah, you had to make sure it was cooled down so you didn't get caught.
Right.
My favorite from, I'm really telling on myself, was the knowledge dance routine.
Okay.
From that whole, I used to be able to do it, I still can. But the bigger picture here is that I identify with what you were saying.
Right.
Okay, so documentary, that's not a very popular thing. In its purest form, right? You have people who grab cameras or their cell phone and they're like, I'm making a documentary.
Right.
But if you go to school for it, if you really study it, it really is an art form.
Absolutely.
So what were some of the things that you wanted to implement right away with doing documentaries? Was it more the way the story was told, or was it the message and concentrating on the aesthetics later?
So documentary wasn't the actual first project, but again, going back to the seeds of like seeing, you know, civil rights documentaries, seeing Eyes on the Prize, it was important for me to be able to tell the story and making sure that the narrative was clear. So, you know, starting with my first project, it was more a collaborative effort. And we can talk about that, you know, later on. But to answer your question, documentaries now are important to me because of a lot of the things I'm involved in. And I feel like there's a story that needs to be told as to why this is important to me or why it's important to someone like in the community. Because if you understand that story, it can invite you to be able to tell your own.
Right.
You know, so I think that's the long way of answering your question is the summation of that.
Awesome. So, what is your process for directing film? Do you have a process, or is it just kind of like you flow with it, or?
So I got to shout out my production crew. So I gotta give you the background story. So, during COVID is when I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do it. I'm going to invest in telling stories or making a film or doing something related to film. And I had a conversation with my friend Matt Munn, who is a huge animator. Shout out to him. He's big time. He's done Rio. He's done Charlie Brown. He's done Disguise, the movie with the penguin. That's agent. He's done all these different movies, and he's a great animator. And he was like, you know what? During this time, I want to do like some funny short films, and I want to bring a team together. He's like, you down for that? So, you know, we're like, yeah. So he reaches out to his fellow animator, 𝐒𝐤𝐥𝐞𝐿. We reach out to one of his best friend's line brother, Carl, who is a grip and does a lot of fantastic photography work as well. And then I pulled in my friend Zach, who actually has experience in doing short films and things of that nature. And then we pulled in one of my other friends, Weldon, who became like our actor of the niche. And so we said, you know what, let's break down the process of, you know, making a film.
Okay.
So I thought it was just like, you go out there, you put your camera out, and my boy Zach was like, no. There's a process to this. There is, you know, we have to go out and we got to check the light. We got to do this and we got to do that. And we literally had about 6 to 7 meetings where we strategized. And I was in love with that process, because when we started filming, everything made sense, because we were going here and going there and making sure that every moment counted, and that is what made me fall out. So shout out to my boys in 𝐒𝐥𝐞𝐵 Productions. You guys ignited something in me, and from that's where I'm like, I got to tell stories to film.
Wow. Mm-hmm. And that was only 3 years?
Yeah.
4 years ago?
Yeah.
Or 2024? No, 4 years ago.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I invested. I got a 𝐒𝐥𝐞𝐵 film camera. That's what we're shooting on today. And I bought a bunch of like equipment, and I haven't looked back, man.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So can you tell me the name of your first project that you...
So the first film we did, it's called Dead Man Running. And so essentially, it's a story, and we wanted to, and you and I had a conversation. We talked about making sure the process is minimal and easy as possible. And that was the advice that my friend Zach gave to all of us. He said, you know what? We're not gonna make something so grandiose that it becomes more than what we're able to do. We're gonna do like a 1 person to 2 person scenario and work the short film from that facet. And so the story is a guy goes to an apartment, he gets a new apartment, and you know when you're getting your apartment, you only have like your bed is on the floor, you have things in boxes. And he realizes he works out every day, and he doesn't have any sneakers. And he's looking all over the place, he realizes, but there's like a glow in his closet, and there's the box that he doesn't recognize, and in it is these sneakers. And he's like, I just want to run, but there's other things that kind of tell you that there's something going on with these shoes. So long story short, he takes the shoes, and ultimately the shoes belong to the person who used to live there.
Okay.
And this person is kind of haunting him in a funny way through the story. So that was the concept of the movie, and it was really cool because through all of the strategy and things of that nature, I had a drone. I was able to capture some things from drone and all of the different things. So it was a lot of fun. It was just a lot of fun, man.
I'm just gonna take a guess. Was the person Michael Johnson? No? Okay, that's, all right, never mind then. We can just move on. I don't know why I went there.
Hilarious.
I wanna see who the person is. Okay, so when you're working in a collaborative space, you're gonna have moments where there might be different perspectives on how to do certain things. Dare I say maybe a disagreement or two. Since you've been doing this, what have you found to be the better ways to handle I don't even want to use the word conflict, but just a difference of perspectives?
Well, the good thing about, I would say, the collaborative effort that I've been involved with, especially with working with my guys with 𝐒𝐥𝐞𝐵, is the understanding that there is someone who's done things before us. So when it comes to any type of creative thing, you've got to be able to absorb knowledge. And if you come from that standpoint, the group will come together and gel towards that common goal. And if you have no ego, and I truly say, with the guys that I worked with, there was no ego, there was nothing, and all of us were just garnering knowledge from that experience. I think as a creative, as a creative team, as a directive team, like you have to have that humility, even when you're the lead. Like you got to be able to say, oh, okay, that's a really good suggestion. What does everybody think? If you kind of strong arm the situation, it's not going to be something that people want to work with you, I feel, nor is the creativity going to really fully be, presented in the way it should be.
Right.
And so I would say with my group and with the people that I collaborate with, I'm always in the mode of humility, even when I'm at the lead.
Wow. So from the time you started, technology, as far as the cameras and the equipment, you were already in the digital
Absolutely.
space. So do you have a preference? It sounds like you're just open to anything, but do you have a certain flavor when it comes to using, I know you have your Zcam, but have you tried different cameras or?
So it's funny because when I was researching to do a camera, one of my friends who's also another filmmaker, Joshua Martin, I reached out to him and he was showing me a lot of stuff. He's like, Mike, at the end of the day, it's about knowing your tool, And it's something that I teach as well when it comes to photography, because photography is the basis by which I started everything. And to understand what your equipment is, no matter what it is, and understand what the capabilities are, what your limits are, even if there are limits, to know what those limits are,
right,
and just go with it. So I think from that standpoint, it's kind of good. I think more so it's more composition that I try to target. And I would liken that to, like, I started understanding that through like watching Spike Lee films and then developing a love for Wes Anderson films and seeing the Royal Tenenbaums. And Royal Tenenbaums changed my life.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
The storyline was good, but just how unique all of the shots are in place when it comes to that. And I was like, you know what? Composition to me is probably the most important thing that I would say is the line of sight when I'm trying to create. Excellent. Versus the equipment.
Nice, nice. All right, so Wes Anderson, Spike Lee, who else is in that brain of yours as far as like influences? Because I'm liking what's cooking up there, and I feel like there's a stew of brewing that you want to share with the world, because that's a nice range of.
I think right there is where I try to stay in the vein of things. Like, I enjoy seeing storytelling through the different directors and things of that nature, but I think those two people really opened my eyes to what you can and cannot do.
Okay.
And I think outside of that, it's just perspective in how you see things or how you tell the story that is unique with every director that I've actually watched outside of that. But right, those two, I would say, they hook, line, and sinker.
Wow.
Yeah.
Excellent choice. Okay. Awkward. Okay. So I want to transition real quick, going back to community, because for everyone who doesn't know, the way that I met you was through facilities here, Studio 40E.
Yes.
Shout out to Tamara.
Shout out to Tamara, who's behind the camera right now.
She's awesome. So I told a story to you when you were interviewing me, but I came here after going to a photography conference, and when I left, I felt like, okay, I need to do something to keep this going, because I was scared the entire weekend. That's another conversation for another day.
Right.
That was my first time really being around photographers.
Right.
And pleasant experience overall, but I just got that I have to keep this going somehow. And so, long story short, the studio found me, liked a picture. I was like, oh, cool. And then I did some research. I was like, classes?
Yeah.
Close?
Yeah.
Like, I'm coming here.
Right.
And so when I came here, what I remember more than anything was just the inviting, warm nature that was here, from you to Tamara. And I was like, okay, this is different. Like, talk to me about what you're building now with Tamara, with Studio 40E, the vibe that you want to kind of cultivate amongst creatives that are coming here now?
Specifically to Studio 40E, I am very blessed to have the relationship that I have professionally with Tamara. It's interesting because we both come from the lane of photography.
Yeah.
And I would see Tamara's work, and I'm like, yo, Tamara, you're a beast. Like, you know, she's always shooting kids. I'm like, yo, you gotta come out here and take some portraits of some grown folks one day. And one day we connected, we shot some shots together, and from there, I was like, man, I see her passion. And she mentioned to me like, hey, you know, I'm thinking about doing a studio. I'm like, yo, do that. Whatever you are about, I'm with it. And from that, you know, fast forward, Studio 40E came about, and I wanted to be a part of what this was because of what Tamara's vision was. And I was like, you know what? I'm about that. I'm about community. I'm about welcoming. I'm about making sure that everyone has a place where they can create, and this is what this place is.
Was there any hesitation when you embarked on this as an instructor of just what you probably would get coming through the door, right? Because you're opening yourself up to just, when you put an ad out, you don't know what you're gonna get.
Right.
So how do you kind of keep that mindset of no matter who walks through that door, the goal is to accomplish X, Y, and Z?
And I think that's just what it is.
Okay.
It's the mindset like, hey, we want to provide services that allow you to get better at what you do.
Nice.
And if you are willing to be here, we're willing to make it work no matter what your skill level is. You know, a lot of times even with some of our workshops, we're having to break down some very essential learning to just basic photography. But it's worthwhile because if we can make that connection, then they know that there is value in their creativity and they can push forward and do more things.
Nice. So when we're talking about creatives, I said it in the beginning, the few places that I've been to, either those communities or organizations, they were cultivated over a span of time, or if it's new, there are people who are trying to build. And I feel like what Studio 40E offers is it's new, but there's an acceleration and a growth to it that you don't find with too many newer type of things. So when you're cultivating that, what do you really attribute the way it's happening? Because I feel like it's happening in a fast...
Yeah, and I think that's a testament to what Tamara is setting up here. She has an edifice where you literally can just walk in, and all you do is bring your camera and you can create. And the freedom of that alone is monumental. And so that's a testament of the work that she's put into the studio. And in turn, it allows for me to, you know, be the ambassador, just to speak on what it is that she actually is doing. So, yeah.
Awesome. And then not only are you a part of Studio 40E, but then you have Portrait Me DC. And so I found out about that when I came here, and I'm like, wait, it's kind of like one of those things you keep pulling back the layers, and it's like, what else is here? So tell everyone what that is.
All right, so PMDC, now that's my heart. That's something that is near and dear to me. PMDC started about 6 years ago. It was brought to us by two individuals, 𝐼C and Johnny, who came from Boston. And in about 2.5 years in, 𝐼C, she had a lot of stuff that she wanted to do. I literally came there, and it was beautiful to see just the few individuals that came to meet, and everybody enjoyed creating on any level. And I was enamored by it. And I put a lot of energy into making sure that I was there, and, you know, and 𝐼C came to me one day and was like, look, you know, I got a lot going on. Would you mind taking the lead here and running PMDC? And for the past this will be 4 years, I've ran the reins of PMDC. We've gone from a community that was about 1,200 to like 11,000 now. We have community relations within the city, like with Union Market and Goodwill, and we want to make sure that we're not only providing a space where people can create freely, but have an opportunity to get a job, or have an opportunity for the community to know that there are models and photographers and videographers and stylists that are available if you tap into a community like this. So it's something that's near and dear to me. Shout out to my PMDC folks, Natasha. If you met Natasha. Natasha's like
Shout
my
out to
right,
Natasha.
my right hand, and then Icy and Johnny, who we make the mod team, and then shout out to our ambassadors, Felipe, Akasha, Ashley, Muhammad, Felipe and Steven, for doing a wonderful job making sure that everyone that comes to one of these meets has a wonderful, wonderful time.
I can't wait. I'm coming in March.
Awesome.
So I'm looking forward to...
Just be prepared. You're gonna be hooked. Like,
okay.
I tell people, I'm not gassing you, but I'm lighting you up a little bit.
Sure, that's
because
fine.
it's intoxicating to see like-minded creatives who are not selfish about what they do, you know? And that happens, we talked about this earlier in the interview. Sometimes creatives can be selfish. Sometimes they can be guarded in what it is that they have because they feel like there's a level of competition. But in this community, that doesn't take place.
I can't wait. I can't wait. I want to be in one of the commercials too, because that's what got me.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, slow pen.
Yeah.
So when looking for community, or whether you decide to build it, what do you recommend? Should a person try to build their own, or do you think they should find one?
I think there's two ways to go about it. You need to figure out where there's a need, right? So community only works if there's a need, So once you figure out what a need is, then if it's not being generated in a community, then you figure it out and start it yourself.
Nice.
And it's gonna take time, but if you're consistent, if there's a general need that others are seeing, they're going to be drawn to that. And like I said, it has to be from a genuine place. It has to be where people feel welcome, where there's not any type of buffers or any type of walls that you build. It has to be from a genuine place.
Nice. And I think you kind of answered this, but I'm just going to put it out there. Who are your favorite collaborators to work with? I kind of think I know the answer, but I just, for the record.
I'll say this. There are people that I love to collaborate with, but I'll keep it broad. I want to work with people who want to be aligned with a welcoming spirit, and that identify with being able to share something to someone else.
Nice.
If it's something that can be given away, then we're doing something properly, If it's something that we're keeping to ourselves and then we want all the credit, then that's not gonna grow. That seed is only gonna grow in one direction, and not many people are gonna see the fruit of that. But if you're willing to collaborate with me and we can give something away, then that's where I wanna be.
Best answer ever. Okay, so this is the fun part. I think the whole interview is fun, but I normally ask questions as like lightning round or whatever.
Okay.
So the last 3 good movies that you've seen.
The last 3 good movies I've seen. I would have to say I liked Dune. I saw Dune again recently.
Is it good?
I actually liked it. I'm looking forward to seeing what part 2 is about. What else have I seen recently that I liked? Ooh, it got me good, because I'm watching a lot of shows lately. To me, like right now, I'm enjoying watching shows.
Okay.
And the show that I'm really watching recently is Suits.
What is happening in the world that is making a comeback?
I'm late to the game, but Suits right now is
Okay, go Megan. No, now I want to watch Suits.
It's really good.
Okay.
It's really good. Another show that I'm watching, I'll get back to the movies, is a show called 𝐼𝐻.
Okay.
And the reason why I like the show is, so I have 2 sons. One is a senior in high school and one is in 5th grade. But my youngest has signs of autism.
Okay.
It's on the spectrum a little bit. And he's such a beautiful mind. And in this show, 𝐼𝐻, this guy is working the hardest he can, and his brother is on the spectrum as well. And to see the challenges that he goes through by uplifting his family and as well as taking his brother, I just like, this is what I want my oldest son to be able to do when it comes to my youngest son. So
Gotcha.
that's another show that I'm really into. And then I want to say movie. What movie? I haven't seen a lot of movie. I'm going back to like watching old movies again.
Okay, I do that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, now let me tell you something. My friends laugh at me because I'm the one to go to the Alamo, favorite theater. Just want to put that out there.
Okay.
That's they do like old things all the time. So they did Clueless this past weekend, and they did The Matrix on Monday, which is my favorite film of all time.
Okay.
And I've seen everything from Enter the Dragon, and they do a lot of throwbacks. They're doing Malcolm X this month.
Okay, hey.
Yeah. I think that's on a Sunday. So yeah, old movies if you want to throw that in the...
Yeah. I'm just getting back to, and I think the reason why I'm watching a lot of older movies is because like I'm still acquiring my flavor to what it is, and I'm like trying to pinch from there and pinch from there. So
nice.
Yeah.
Okay. No. I just real quick, what if you're keeping up with it, you can answer. If not, we can just throw another question in there.
Okay.
What do you think of the Oscar nominations?
Well, I'll say this. I like Jeff, and I want to see that movie. I think
so
Jeff,
good.
I think Jeff deserves to win because he's such a dope actor, and he's from the DMV.
He's from the DMV.
And to like see and I like the fact that he was in the most recent Wes Anderson film, and his character, where he just, the way he presents his audio and the way his tonality when it comes to acting is awesome. So
okay,
I like but I want Jeff to win.
I want Jeff to win too, but that category is pretty crowded.
Yeah, it is.
They're gonna give it to the Oppenheimer guy.
Yeah.
Which was a great movie.
Yeah,
I'm
it
not
was.
being dismissive.
Then I did see Oppenheimer.
Okay.
I did see Oppenheimer. I really liked the cinematography and
Nolan. That's my fave.
Yeah.
I just think he does really intentional work, which you taught me, right?
Yeah,
so when you kept saying that, I was like, oh, spirit of Nolan. But every shot that he takes, I like how practical he is.
Yeah.
And he'll try to do everything in camera before he takes it to post and do whatever. But okay, good question. And the last one that I want to throw out as far as the lightning round, what would be your dream project or dream whatever to work on?
I'd like to, and I've been talking to my brother about this kind of doing a family documentary. Because, when I think about my brother and our lives, it's very unique. My brother and I are 10 months apart.
Okay.
My parents got married very young.
Okay.
My dad was in the military, and to kind of tell that story from the standpoint of, a PK to, all of the different things that we experienced together, it's something that I want to do from a documentary standpoint.
Okay.
And then maybe like do a loose narrative of it, like from a film perspective. So yeah.
When is that happening?
Right now, it's one of those incubator stages where I'm like talking it out with my brother. And we're like, yeah, and we should talk about that. And we should talk about that. So right now, it's in incubator stage.
All right, it'll be ready by next year. That's what I'm hearing. It'll be ready by next year. Thank you so much for being on my podcast.
Oh, man.
I appreciate this so much more than I can express. Thank you, just for being very intentional with not only how you teach me personally, but just how you handle everybody. There's like just a coolness and a reassurance that you give. And you're just a very bright light and encouraging. And I'm gonna compliment you for hours, so I'm gonna stop and just say thank you for being you.
I appreciate it, man. I take that from a very humble place because I feel like one of the things that I will take away from my journey from being in the church is that I really believe that we have to be selfless in our approach to life. And if we really believe in that, if we really understood what Jesus' ministry was all about, it wasn't about him being in no fancy church. It wasn't about him it was about him going to the people, hearing their stories, and being in a familiar place with them so that he could be a ministry to them. And if we're doing that, that's what creatives ultimately are. We're ministers to different things. We're ministers to reaching emotions. We're ministers to sharing composition, and if we can tell those stories in a proper way, we're doing what we're meant to do. So, yeah, man.
That's how you end an episode. All right, thank you for being on the show.
My pleasure, man.